Welcome everyone to our Sunday Krishna book reading here in Srila Prabhupada's sacred room in Vrindavan. We're so grateful that Srila Prabhupada allows us to come and read to him from his Krishna book. So last week we were in chapter 10. Chapter 10, the deliverance of Nalakuvara and Manigriva. And we didn't get to finish the chapter, so if you turn towards the end of the chapter in your English Krishna books, the paragraph begins with, in this material world. Everybody, in this material world. Right, her book might be a little different. In this material world, you see it? Maybe on this page? Yeah, but her book is different. Let's see. Can you help her find it while I begin? Oh, that's nice of you. That's, Prabhupada said we should be ladies and gentlemen. So you were just a perfect example. Hare Krishna. Okay, so we're on the paragraph towards the end of deliverance of Nalakuvara and Manigriva. Hare Krishna Mataji. In this material world, Karabanjan Prabhu, you can sit here. You're fine here. Yeah, this is the brahmachari section. Prabhupada's so happy to see both of you again. Okay, so you can help Karabanjan wherever we are. In this material world, you make yourself known only by your different incarnations. Although you assume different types of bodies, these bodies are not part of the material creation. They are always full of the transcendental potencies of unlimited opulence, strength, beauty, fame, wisdom, and renunciation. In the material existence, there is a difference between the body and the owner of the body. But because you appear in your original body, there is no such difference for you. When you appear, your uncommon activities indicate that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such uncommon activities are not possible for anyone in material existence. You, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, cause the birth and death as well as the liberation of the living entities, and you are full with all your plenary expansions. You can bestow on everyone all kinds of benedictions. O Lord, O source of all auspiciousness and goodness, we offer our respectful obeisances unto you. You are the all-pervading Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Source of Peace, and the Supreme Personality in the dynasty of King Yadu. O Lord, our Father, known as Kuvera, the demigod, is your servant. Similarly, the great sage Narada is also your servitor, and only by their grace have we been able to see you personally. We therefore pray that we may always be engaged in your transcendental loving service by speaking only about your glories and hearing about your transcendental activities. May our hands and other limbs be engaged in your service, and our minds always be concentrated at your lotus feet, and our heads always bowed down before the all-pervading universal form of your Lordship. Okay, everybody remember to read slowly, keep the mic close to your mouth, and with expression.
When the demigods Nalakuvara and Manigriva finished their prayers, the child Lord Krishna the master and proprietor of Gokula, bound to the wooden grinding mortar by the ropes of Yashoda, smiled and said, "It was already known to me that my great devotees Narad Muni had shown his causeless mercy by saving you from the abominable condition of pride due to possessing extraordinary beauty and opulence in a family of demigods. He has saved you from gliding down into the lowest conditions of hellish life. All these facts are already known to me. You are very fortunate because not only were you cursed by him, but you had the great opportunity to see him. If someone is able by chance to see face to face a great saintly person like Narada, who is always serene and merciful to everyone, then immediately that conditioned soul becomes liberated. This is exactly like being situated in the full light of the sun. There cannot be any visionary impediment. Therefore, O Nal Kuvera and Manigriva, your lives have now become successful because you have developed ecstatic love for me. This is your last birth within material existence. Now you can go back to your father's residence in the heavenly planets. And by remaining in the attitude of devotional service, you will be liberated in this very life. All right. After this, the demigods circumambulated the Lord many times and bowed down before him again and again. And thus they left. The Lord remained bound up with ropes to the grinding mortar. Thus ends the Bhakti-Vedanta purport of the 10th chapter of Krishna, the deliverance of Nala Kuvera and Manigriva. Hare Krishna.
Chapter 11. Killing the demons Vatsasur and Bakasur. When the twin Arjuna trees fell to the ground, making a sound like the falling of the thunderbolts, all the inhabitants of Gokula, including Nanda Maharaj, immediately came to the spot. They were very much astonished to see how the two great trees had suddenly fallen. Because they could find no reason for their falling down, they were puzzled. When they saw child Krishna bound up to the wooden mortar by the ropes of Mother Yashoda, they thought that it must have been caused by some demon. Otherwise, how was it possible? At the same time, they were very much perturbed because such uncommon incidents were always happening to child Krishna. While the coward men were thus contemplating, the small children who were playing there informed the men that the trees had fallen because Krishna had pulled the wooden mortar with the ropes binding him. Krishna came in between the two trees, they explained, and the wooden mortar was topsy-turvy and stuck in between the trees. Krishna pulled the rope and the trees fell down. When the trees fell down, two very dazzling men came out of the trees and they said something to Krishna.
Most of the cowherd men did not believe the statement of the children. They could not believe that such things were at all possible. Some of the men, however, believed them and told Nand Maharaj, "Your child is different from all other children. He just might have done it." Nanda Maharaj smiled to hear about the extraordinary abilities of his son. He came forward and untied the knot just to free his wonderful child. After being freed by Nand Maharaj, Krishna was taken onto the laps of the elder gopis. They took him away to the courtyard of the house and began to clap. praising his wonderful activities. Krishna danced along with their clapping, just like an ordinary child. The Supreme Lord Krishna, being completely controlled by the gopis, sang and danced just like a puppet in their hands.
Sometimes Mother Yashoda used to ask Krishna to bring her a wooden plank for sitting. Although the wooden plank was too heavy to be carried by a child, still somehow or other Krishna would bring it to his mother. Sometimes his father, while worshipping Narayana, would ask him to bring his wooden slippers, and Krishna, with great difficulty, would put the slippers on his head and bring them to his father. When he was asked to lift some heavy article and was unable to lift it, he would simply move his arms. In this way, daily, at every moment, he was the reservoir of all pleasure for his parents. Thus, Lord was exhibiting such childish dealings with the inhabitants of Vrindavan because he wanted to show the great philosophers and sages searching after the absolute truth, how the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead, is controlled by and subject to the desires of his pure devotees.
One day, a fruit vendor came before the house of Nand Maharaj. Upon hearing the vendor call, "If anyone wants fruits, please come and take them from me." Child Krishna immediately took some grains in his palms and went to get fruits in exchange. In those days, exchange was by barter. Therefore, Krishna might have seen his parents acquire fruits and other things by bartering grains. And so he imitated, but his palms were very small and he was not very careful to hold the grains tight, so he was dropping them. The vendor who came to sell fruits saw this and was much captivated by the beauty of the Lord. So she immediately accepted whatever few grains were left in his palms and filled his hands with fruits. In the meantime, the vendor saw that her whole basket of fruits had become filled with jewels. And the Lord is the bestower of all benedictions. If someone gives something to the Lord, he is not the loser, he is the gainer by 1,000,000 times.
One day, Lord Krishna, the liberator of the twins Arjuna trees, was playing with Balram and other children on the bank of the Yamuna. And because it was already late in the morning, Mohini, the mother of Balram, went to call them back home. But Balram and Krishna were so engrossed in playing with their friends that they did not wish to go back. They just engaged themselves in playing more and more. When Rohini was unable to take them back home, she went home and sent Mother Yashoda to call them again. Mother Yashoda was so affectionate towards her son that as soon as she came out to call him back home, her breast filled up with milk. She loudly cried, my dear child, please come home back. Your time for lunch is already past." She then said, "My dear Krishna, oh my dear lotus-eyed child, please come and suck my breast. You may played enough. You must be very hungry. My dear little child, you must be tired from playing for so long." She was addressed Balram thus, "My dear Rama, the glory of your family, my dear child, please come back with your younger brother Krishna immediately. You have been engaged in playing since early morning.
You must be very tired. Please come back and take your lunch at home. Your father Nand Raja is waiting for you. He has to eat, so you must come back so that he can eat.
Hare Krishna. As soon as Krishna and Balram heard that Nand Maharaj was waiting for them and could not take his food in their absence, they started to return. Their playmates complained, Krishna is leaving us just at the point when our playing is at the summit. Next time we shall not allow him to leave. His playmates then threatened not to allow him to play with them again. Krishna became afraid, and instead of going back home, he went back again to play with the boys. At that time, Mother Yashoda scolded the children and told Krishna, My dear Krishna, do you think that you are a street boy? You have no home? Please come back to your home. See that your body has become very dirty from playing since early morning. Now come home and take your bath. Besides, today is your birthday ceremony. Therefore, you should come back home and give cows in charity to the Brahmanas. Don't you see how your playmates are decorated with ornaments by their mothers? You should also be cleansed and decorated with nice dress and ornaments. Please, therefore, come back. Take your bath, dress yourself nicely, and then again you may go on playing.
In this way, Mother Yashoda called back Lord Krishna and Balaram, who are worshipable by great demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. She was thinking of them as her children. When Mother Yashoda's children, Krishna and Balaram, came home, she bathed them very nicely and dressed them with ornaments. She then called for the Brahmanas and taught her children. She gave many cows in charity for the occasion of Krishna's birthday. In this way, she performed the birthday ceremony of Krishna at home. After this incident, all the elder cowherd men assembled together and Nanda Maharaj presided. They began to consult amongst themselves how to stop the great disturbances in Mahaban on account of the demons. In this meeting, Upananda, the brother of Nanda Maharaj, was present. He was considered to be learned and experienced, and he was a well-wisher of Krishna and Balaram. He was a leader, and he addressed the meeting as follows. My dear friends, now we shall leave here for another place because we are continually finding that great demons are coming here to disturb the peaceful situation, and they are specially attempting to kill the small children. Just consider Putana and Krishna. It was simply by the grace of Lord Hari that Krishna was saved from the hands of such a great demon. Next, the whirlwind demon took Krishna away into the sky, but by the grace of Lord Hari, he was saved, and the demon fell down on a stone slab and died. Very recently, this child was playing between two trees, and the trees fell down violently, and yet there was no injury to the child. So Lord Hari saved him again. Just imagine the calamity if this child or any other child playing with him were crushed by the falling trees. Considering all these incidents, we must conclude that this place is no longer safe. Let us leave.
We have all been saved from the different calamities by the grace of Lord Hari. Now we should be cautious and leave this place and decide somewhere where we can live peacefully. I think that we should all go to the forest known as Vrindavan. We just now there are newly grown plants and herbs. It is very suitable for pasturing ground for our cows, and we and our families, the gopis with their children, can very peacefully live there. Near Vrindavan is Golden Hill, which is very beautiful, and there are newly grown grass and folded for the animal. So this will be no difficulty in living there. I therefore suggest that we start immediately for that beautiful place, as there is no need to waste any more time. Let us prepare all our carts immediately, and if you like, let us go, keeping all the cows in front.
On hearing the statement of Upananda, all the cowherd men immediately agreed. Let us immediately go there. Everyone then loaded all their household furniture and utensils onto the carts and prepared to go to Vrindavan. All the children, women, and old men of the village were arranged on seats, and the cowherd men equipped themselves with bows and arrows to follow the carts. All the cows and bulls were placed in the front, along with their calves, and the men, with their bows and arrows, surrounded the herds and carts and began to blow on their horns and bugles. In this way, with tumultuous sound, they started for Vrindavan. And who can describe the damsels of Vraja? They were all seated on the carts and were very beautifully dressed with ornaments and costly saris. They chanted the pastimes of child Krishna as usual. Mother Yashoda and Mother Rohini were seated on a separate cart, and Krishna and Balaram were seated on their laps. While Mother Rohini and Yashoda were riding on the cart, they talked to Krishna and Balaram, and feeling the pleasure of such talks, they looked very, very beautiful.
In this way, after reaching Vrindavan, where everyone lives eternally, very peacefully and happily, they encircled Vrindavan, drew all the carts together in a full circle, in a half circle, and in this way constructed a temporary residence. When Krishna and Balaram saw the beautiful appearance of Vrindavan, Govardhan Hill, and the banks of the river Jamuna, they felt very happy. As they grew up, they began talking with their parents and others in childish language, and thus they gave great pleasure to all the inhabitants of Vrindavan.
Soon, Krishna and Balram had grown sufficiently to be given charges of the calves. Cowherd boys from the very beginning of their childhood are trained to take care of the cows, and their first responsibility is to take care of the little calves. So, along with other little cowherd boys, Krishna and Balaram went into the pasturing ground and took charge of the calves, and there they played with their playmates. While taking charge of the calves, sometimes the two brothers played on their flutes, and sometimes they played with amalka fruits and bale fruits, just as small children play with the balls. Sometimes they danced and made tinkling sound with their ankle bells. Sometimes they made themselves into bulls and cows by covering themselves with blankets. Krishna and Balram played. The two brothers also used to imitate the sounds of bulls and cows and play at bullfighting. Sometimes they used to imitate the sounds of various animals and birds. In this way, they enjoyed their childhood pastimes, apparently like ordinary mundane children.
Once, when Krishna and Balram were playing on the bank of Yamuna, a demon of the name Vatsasur assumed the shape of a calf and came there intending to kill the brothers. By taking the shape of a cow, the demon could mingle with the other cows. Krishna, however, specifically noticed this and he immediately alerted Balrama about the entrance of the demon. Both brothers then silently approached him. Krishna caught hold of the demon calf by the two hind legs and tail, whipped him around very forcibly, and threw him up into the trees. The demon lost his life and fell down from the top of the tree to the ground. When the demon lay dead on the ground, all the playmates of Krishna congratulated him, well done, and the demigods in the sky showered flowers with great satisfaction. In this way, the maintainers of the complete creation, Krishna and Balarama, used to take care of the cows every day, beginning in the morning, and thus they enjoyed their childhood pastimes as cowherd boys in Vrindavan.
One day, all the cowherd boys went to the bank of the river Yamuna to water their calves. When the calves drank water from the Yamuna, the boys also drank. After drinking, when they were sitting on the bank of the river, they saw a huge animal which looked something like a heron and was as big as a hill. Its top was as strong as a thunderbolt. When they saw that unusual animal, they became afraid of it. The name of this beast was Bakasura, and he was a friend of Kamsa's. He appeared on the scene suddenly and immediately attacked Krishna with his pointed sharp beak and quickly swallowed him up. When Krishna was thus swallowed, all the boys, headed by Balram, became almost breathless, as if they had died. But when the Bakasura demon was swallowing up Krishna, he felt a burning fiery sensation in his throat. This was due to the glowing effulgence of Krishna. The demon quickly threw Krishna up and tried to kill him by pinching him in his beak. Bakasura did not know that although Krishna was playing the part of a child of Nanda Maharaj, he was still the original father of Lord Brahma, the creator of the universe, Mother Yashoda's child, who is the reservoir of pleasure for the demigods and who is the maintainer of saintly persons, caught the hold of the gigantic heron by the two halves of his beak, and before his cowherd boyfriends bifurcated his mouth, just as a child very easily splits a blade of grass. From the sky, the denizens of the heavenly planets showered flowers like the malika, the most fragrant of all flowers, as a token of their congratulations. Accompanying the showers of flowers was a vibration of bugles, drums, and conch shells.
When the boys saw the showering of flowers and heard the celestial sounds, they were struck with wonder. And when they saw Krishna freed from the mouth of the great demon Bakasura, All of them, including Balarama, were so pleased that it seemed as if they had regained their very source of life. As soon as they saw Krishna coming towards them, they one after another embraced the son of Nanda and held him to their chests. After this, they assembled all the cubs under their charge and began to return home.
When they arrived home, they spoke of the wonderful activities of the son of Nanda. When the gopis and cowherd men all heard the story from the boys, they felt great happiness because naturally they loved Krishna, and by hearing about his glories and victorious activities, they became still more affectionate toward him. Thinking that child Krishna had been saved from the mouth of death, they looked upon his face with great love and affection. They were full of anxiety and could not turn their faces from the vision of Krishna. The gopis and the men began to converse amongst themselves about how wonderful it was that child Krishna had been attacked in so many ways and so many times by so many demons, and yet the demons themselves had been killed, and Krishna had remained uninjured. They continued to converse amongst themselves and how so many great demons in such fierce body had attacked Krishna to kill him, but by the grace of Hari had not been able to cause even slight injury. Rather, they had died like small flies in a fire. Thus, they remembered the word of Garga Muni, who had foretold by dint of his vast knowledge of the Vedas and astrology that this boy would be attacked by many demons. Now they were actually seeing that this was coming true word for word.
All the cowherd men, including Nanda Maharaj, used to talk of the wonderful activities of Lord Krishna and Balarama. And they were always so much absorbed in those talks that they forget that the freehold miseries of this material existence. This is the effect of Krishna consciousness. What was enjoyed 5,000 years ago by Nanda Maharaj can still be enjoyed by Krishna consciousness person simply by talking about the transcendental pastime of Krishna and his associates. Thus Balram and Krishna enjoyed their childhood pastime, imitating Lord Ramchandra's monkey who constructed bridge over the ocean, and Hanuman who jumped over the water of Ceylon. They used to mitigate such pastime among their friends and so happily pass their childhood life. Thus, and the Bhakti-Vedanta purport of the 11th chapter of Krishna, killing the demons Vatsasura and Bakasura.
Chapter 12, the killing of the Aghasur demon. Once the Lord desired to go early in the morning with all his cowherd boyfriends to the forest, where they were to assemble together and take lunch. As soon as he got up from bed, he blew his buffalo horn, bugles, and called all his friends together. Keeping the calves before them, they started for the forest in a great procession. In this way, the Lord assembled thousands of his boyfriends. They were each equipped with a stick, flute, and horn, as well as a lunch bag, and each of them was taking care of thousands of calves. All the boys appeared very jolly and happy in the excursion. Each and every one of them, including Krishna, was attentive to his personal calves as he herded them in the different places in the forest. The boys were fully decorated with various kinds of golden ornaments, yet out of sporting propensities, they began to pick up flowers, leaves, twigs, peacock feathers, and red clay from different places in the forest and further decorate themselves in different ways. While passing through the forest, one boy stole another boy's lunch package and passed it to a third. And when the boy whose lunch package was stolen come to know of it, he tried to take it back, but the boys who had it threw it to another boy. This sportive playing went on amongst the boys as childhood pastimes.
When Lord Krishna went ahead to a distant place in order to see some specific scenery, the boys behind him ran to try to catch up and be the first to touch him. So there was great competition. One would say, I will go there and touch Krishna. And another would say, oh, you cannot go. I will touch Krishna first. Some of them played on their flutes or vibrated bugles made of buffalo horn. Some of them gladly followed the peacocks and imitated the onomatopoetic sounds of the cuckoo. While the birds were flying in the sky, the boys ran after the birds' shadows along the ground and tried to follow their exact courses. Some of them went to the monkeys and silently sat down by them. And some of them imitated the dancing of the peacocks. Some of them caught monkeys by the tail and played with them. And when the monkeys jumped into the tree, the boys followed. When a monkey showed its face and teeth, a boy imitated and showed his teeth to the monkey. Some of the boys played with the frogs on the bank of the Yamuna. And when, out of fear, the frogs jumped into the water, the boys immediately dove in after them. And they would come out of the water when they saw their own shadows and stand imitating, making caricatures and laughing. They would also go to an empty well and make loud sounds. And when the echo came back, they would call it ill names and laugh.
I lost. As stated personally by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in Bhagavad-Gita, he is realized purportedly by the Transcendentalists as Brahman, Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here in the confirmation of the same statement, Lord Krishna, who awards the impersonalists and the pleasure of Balaram realization by his bodily effusions, also gives pleasure to the devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who are under the spell of the external energy, Maya, take him only as a beautiful child. Yet he gave full transcendental pleasure to the coward boys who played with him. Only after accumulating heap of pious activities were these those boys promoted to the personal association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Who can estimate the transcendental fortune of the residents of the Vrindavan? They were personally seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. He whom many yogis cannot find even after undergoing severe austerity, although he is sitting within their heart. This is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. One may search for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, through the pages of the Vedas and Upanishad's, but it is difficult to find him there. However, one who is fortunate enough to associate with a devotee can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. After accumulating pious activities in many previous lives, the cowherd boys were seeing Krishna face to face and playing with him as a friends. They could not understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but they were playing as intimate friends and instant love for him.
When Lord Krishna was enjoying his childhood pastimes with his boyfriends, one Aghasur demon became very impatient. He was unable to tolerate seeing Krishna playing so happily, and therefore he appeared before the boys, intending to kill them all. This Aghasur was so dangerous that even the denizens of heaven were afraid of him. Although the denizens of heaven drank nectar daily to prolong their life, they were afraid of this Aghasur and were wondering, when will the demon be killed? The denizens used to drink nectar to become immortal, but actually they were not confident of their immortality. On the other hand, the boys who were playing with Krishna had no fear of the demons. They were free of fear. Any material arrangement for protecting oneself from death is always unsure. But if one is in Krishna consciousness, then immortality is confidently assured.
The demon Aghasura appeared before Krishna and his friends. Aghasura happened to be the younger brother of Putana and Bakasura, and he thought, Krishna has killed my brother and sister. Now I shall kill him along with all his friends and calves. Aghasura was instigated by Kamsa, so he had come with determination. Aghasura also thought that when he would offer grains and water in memory of his brother and sister and kill Krishna and all the cowherd boys, then automatically all the inhabitants of Vrindavan would die. Generally, for the householders, the children are the life and breath force. When all the children die, then naturally the parents also die on account of strong affection for them.
Show those pictures. We have some beautiful artwork from the BBT artists. Can you close in? Can you go close? Close up? This is the picture of Bakasura, and then Aghasura. Beautiful artwork. Prabhupada called these windows into the spiritual world. Okay, we'll continue. Oh no, did we learn it? There you
Aghasura, thus deciding to kill all the inhabitants of Vrindavana, expanded himself by the yogic siddhi called Mahima. The demons were generally expert in achieving almost all kinds of mystic powers. In the yoga system, by the perfection called Mahima Siddhi, one can expand himself as he desires. The demon Aghasura expanded himself up to 8 miles and assumed the shape of a very fat serpent. Having attained this wonderful body, he stretched his mouth open just like a mountain cave. Desiring to swallow all the boys at once, including Krishna and Balram, he set on the path.
The demon, in the shape of a big fat serpent, expanded his lips from the land to the sky. His lower lip was touching the ground, and his upper lip was touching the clouds. His jaws appeared like a big mountain cave without limitation, and his teeth appeared just like mountain summits. His tongue appeared to be a broad traffic way, and he was breathing just like a hurricane. His eyes were blazing like fire. At first, the boys thought that the demon was a statue, but after examining it, they saw that it was a big serpent lying down on the road and widening his mouth. The boys began to talk amongst themselves. "Dear friends, this figure appears to be a great animal, and he is sitting in such a posture just to swallow us all. Just see, is it not a big snake that has widened his mouth to eat all of us?"
One of them said, "Yes, what you say is true. This animal's upper lip appears to be just like the sunshine, and its lower lip is just like the reflection of a red sunshine on the ground. Dear friends, just look to the right and left hand side of the mouth of the animal. Its mouth appears to be like a big mountain cave, and its height can't be estimated. The chin is also raised just like a mountain summit. That long highway appears to be its tongue, and inside the mouth it is as dark as in a mountain cave. The hot wind that is blowing like a hurricane is his breathing, and the fishy bad smell coming out from his mouth is the smell of his intestines."
Then they further consulted among themselves, "If we all at one time entered into the mouth of this great serpent, how could it possibly swallow all of us? And even if it were to swallow all of us at once, it could not swallow Krishna. Krishna will immediately kill him as he did Bakasura." Talking in this way, all the boys looked at the beautiful lotus face of Krishna, and they began to clap and smile. And so they marched forward and entered the mouth of the gigantic serpent. Meanwhile, Krishna, who is super soul within everyone's heart, could understand that this big statistic figure was a demon. The boys did not know this, however, and thus, while Krishna was planning how to stop the destruction of his intimate friends, all the boys, along with their calves, entered the mouth of the serpent. But Krishna did not enter. The demon was awaiting Krishna's entrance, and he was thinking, "Everyone has entered except Krishna, who has killed my brother and sister."
Krishna is the assurance of safety to everyone. But when he saw that his friends were already out of his hands and were lying within the belly of a great serpent, he became momentarily aggrieved. He was also struck with wonder at how the external energy works so wonderfully. He then began to consider how he could kill the demon and at the same time save the boys and cubs. Although there was no factual concern on Krishna's part, he was thinking like that. Finally, after deliberation, he also entered the mouth of the demon. When Krishna entered, all the demigods who had gathered to see the fun and who were hiding within the clouds expressed their feelings with the words, "Alas, alas." At the same time, all the friends of Aghasura, especially Kamsa, who were all accustomed to eating flesh and blood, expressed their jubilation, understanding that Krishna had also entered the mouth of the demon.
While the demon was trying to smash Krishna and his companion, Krishna heard the demigod crying, "Alas, alas," and he immediately began to expand himself within the throat of the demon. Although he had a gigantic body, the demon choked by the expanding of Krishna. His eyes moved violently and he quickly suffocated. His life air could not come out from any source, and ultimately it burst out of a hole in the upper part of his skull. Thus, his life air passed off. After the demon was dead, Krishna, with the transcendental glance alone, brought all the boys and calves back to consciousness and came with them out of the mouth of the demon, while Krishna was within the mouth of Aghasura. The demon's spirit soul came out like a dazzling light, illuminating all direction and waited in the sky. As soon as Krishna came out of the mouth of the demon with his calves and friends, that glittering effulgent light immediately merged into the body of Krishna within the vision of all the demigods.
The demigod become overwhelmed with joy and soured flower on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and thus they worship him. The denizens of heaven dance in jubilation, and the denizens of Gandharvaloka offered various kind of prayers. Drums beat drums in jubilation. The Brahman recited Vedic hymns, and all the devotees of the Lord chanted the words Jaya Jaya, all glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When Lord Brahma heard those auspicious vibrations which sounded throughout the higher planetary system, he immediately came down to see what had happened. He saw that the demon was killed, and he was struck with wonder at the uncommon glorious pastime of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The gigantic mouth of the demon remained in the open position for many days and gradually dried up. It remained a spot of pleasure pastime of all the coward boys.
The killing of Aghasura took place when Krishna and all his boyfriends were under 5 years old. Children under 5 years old are called Kumaras. From 5 years up to the 10th years, they are called Poganda. And from the 10th year up to the 15th year, they are called Kishora. After the 15th year, boys are called youths. For 1 year, there was no discussion of the incident of the Aghasura demon in the village of the Vraja. But when the boy attained their 6th year, they informed their parents of the incident with great wonder.
For Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is far greater than such demigods as Lord Brahma, It is not at all difficult to avoid one of the opportunity of merging with his eternal body. This he awarded to Aghasura. Aghasura was certainly the most sinful living entity, and it is not possible for the sinful to merge into the existence of the absolute truth. But in this particular case, because Krishna entered into Aghasura's body, the demon became fully cleansed of all sinful reactions. Persons constantly thinking of the eternal form of the Lord in the shape of the deity or in the shape of a mental form are awarded the transcendental benediction of entering into the kingdom of God and associating with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we can just imagine the elevated positions of someone like Aghasura, into whose body the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, personally entered. Great sages, meditators, and devotees constantly keep the form of the Lord within their hearts, or they see the deity form of the Lord in the temples. In that way, they become liberated from all material contamination, and at the end of the body, enter into the kingdom of God. This perfection is possible simply by keeping the form of Lord within the mind. But in the case of Aghasura, the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally entered. Aghasura's position was therefore greater than the ordinary devotees or the greatest yogis.
Maharaj Parishad, who was engaged in hearing the transcendental pastime of Lord Krishna, who saved the life of Maharaj Parishad while he was in the womb of his mother, became more and more interested to hear about him, and thus he questioned the sages Sukdev Goswami, who was reciting Srimad Bhagavatam before the king. King Parishad was a bit astonished to understand that the killing of Aghasur demon was not discussed for 1 year until after the boys attended the Paguna age. Maharaj Parishad was inquisitive to learn about this, for he was sure that such an incident was due to worship of Krishna, different energies.
Generally, the Kshatriyas or the administrative class are always busy with their political affairs, and they have a very little chance to hear about the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna. But while Parikshit Maharaj was hearing these transcendental pastimes, he considered himself to be very fortunate, because not only was he hearing Krishna's pastime, but he was doing so from Sukdev Goswami, the greatest authority on Srimad Bhagavatam. Thus, being requested by Maharaj Parikshit, Sukdev Goswami continued to speak about the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna in the matter of his form, qualities, fame, and paraphernalia. Thus ends the Bhakti-Vedanta purport of the 12th chapter of Krishna, the killing of Aghasur demon.
So that concludes our Sunday weekly reading of Krishna book to Srila Prabhupada. And as always, we would like to conclude with offering our humble obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Nama Om Vishnuvadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti-Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paskachade Shatarane, and to each other. Vanchakalpaturbyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Krishna Book, Jai Sri Gauda Bhakta Vrinda.